All right. Welcome, everyone. So excited to have you all. Hi, John. I see you. So many amazing faces. This is great. Welcome, everyone. Give me a little thumbs up if you can hear me okay and see us okay. We've got a great panel already here. Oh, I'm getting a whole lot of thumbs up. It's like I'm learning about Zoom, something new about Zoom every day. Gets me excited. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, welcome. Okay, there you go. JP's kind of put in a little bit here, Welcome everyone, Rock, Paper, Success. It's our launch session. We have a whole lot of people coming from everywhere. Let's, JP, if you want to maybe add something in the chat, let's hear about where everybody is coming from. Ignore the note taker, this is going to be a great session. We want a bunch of notes to be taken, recorded and stuff. So, okay, all right. But while we're letting people in, which we're going to give it a few more minutes, do drop in the chat where you're coming from, even your LinkedIn, because this is the session where you want to be connected to people. You could drop in your LinkedIn in here too, just connect, and it's going to be great. Oh, wow, we've got a bunch of different people coming from so many different places. New Jersey, Ontario, wow, California, oh yeah. All over the place. This is great. Awesome. I almost feel like I need to have like a music in the background playing or something. That could just be me. Okay, well, while we have people coming in, I'm going to ask something to the panelists, and I'll do the introduction in a little bit, so you'll learn about all of it. But the name of this session is Rock, Paper, Success, and obviously we came up with that name from the game, Rock, Paper, Scissors. And I'll tell you a little bit about, why and how we came up with it. And John, I can see you smiling because you were involved, so you know how it happened. But I guess a question for the panelists here, Carly, Nash, and Kevin, is if you were to make maybe like a game for CS using Rock, Paper, Success, not saying scissors, Rock, Paper, Success, how should we do it? Should we like do like a one-on-one of like rock, paper, maybe success, or I don't know, or what is it going to be like? We've been rocking our head when we were prepping about this, and I just don't know. If anyone else has ideas, drop that in the chat too. But yeah, CS game.
I mean, I feel like maybe onboarding, a quality onboarding leads into adoption. So I would say it probably beats adoption. Adoption probably beats a cadence call, and then a cadence call so probably like that.
Oh,
I don't know how we're gonna do the symbols for it though. Like a cadence call. No, we'll have to figure that part out.
I was thinking like renewal is paper because it's like they're signing the contract.
And I like it.
You have detractors who are like the rocks, and then your promoters are scissors. But maybe it should be the opposite.
I think the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
the opposite.
Yeah, the opposite. Are the scissors. Yeah, they're leaving.
Promoters are the rocks, and they're holding up the paper, the renewal.
Yeah,
well,
but think about
everything. Yeah,
I'm gonna add a twist here real quick. Is we don't want to talk about scissors. We want to talk about success, because it's rock, paper, success. So it's like success is something that, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to say it's like success is something that beats everything, kind of,
Well, expansion beats everything.
There you go. Growth and expansion.
Yeah.
That's what we're
all about. Land and expand, right? Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, I think that's going to be probably a discussion during this panel discussions. And I'm sure by the end of it, we'll come up with a game for CS. This is going to be a ritual. Well, thank you guys for the note. Okay, we're 10:05 and I'm about to kickstart. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This is our launch Rock, Paper, Success session, which is by CS Insider. I'm going to do a little introduction of myself, CS Insider, and all of that, and also our great panelists here. And then I'll go through the agenda and everything. But first thing first, Thank you so much, everyone. JP here, who's also part of CS Insider and also, a part of, I guess, behind the scenes, is working with me, helping me with this Rock Paper Success, launch the session here, and he's going to be managing the chat. So if you ever have any questions, concern, anything, drop in the chat. He's going to be managing, he's going to help you with it. And then our panelists will also kind of jump in and in between if they can. But yeah, so, just continue having conversations and dropping your LinkedIns and where you're from and all that good stuff in the chat, because we want this to be a session where you can get the most out of, and also you can connect with a bunch of people. So there's that. We also have Christina here, and there you go. She put up a little heart, and she is also part of the Rock Paper Success team, and she's also going to be helping me manage. And then another great thing is that we're also going to be writing about this session. So we're not going to just do the recording and the live sessions. We're going to be presenting a kind of a newsletter, an article after this too, with all the details, all the good stuff that we're going to be talking about, which you guys will all get, and Christina is going to help me with that on it. So that's the team. Myself, Ashna Patel, I'm co-founder of CS Insider, and CS Insider, as many of you have heard, hopefully you have. If not, please sign up. But it's a newsletter / I guess now it's a panel discussion, and there's a whole lot of other things that we do with CS Insider too. But we support our personas that we support is people breaking into CS, growing and being a CS, growing their careers in CS, being a first-time leaders and whatnot. So that's what we kind of strive to support in CS Insider. We also have our speed mixers, which some of you may have attended, which is networking event. Really a fun, exciting event. We'll drop a link for that at the end as well, if you ever want to attend. So that's about CS Insider. Earlier this year, we came up with this idea that we didn't just want to do newsletter. We wanted to do more than that. We wanted to gather people that are kind of living the dream, doing the work every day of, people breaking into CS, people supporting those breaking into CS, people working, just being an amazing CSMs, and also, maybe being a first-time leader and whatnot. And we wanted to bring them on board. We wanted to bring them into one area, and we can kind of just do a little bit of a brainstorming with them, ask them certain questions, and people who are looking to gain their knowledge in these areas can understand and learn from it. That's really kind of how Rock Paper Success came in existence. It took a little bit of a time for us to kind of go back and forth and work on everything, but we're finally here. It is our first sessions. We're super excited. And thank you all for being part of this. I cannot tell you how excited I am today. So thanks, everyone. And with that, a few housekeeping items. You are all muted, but you can see the chat. You can continue, conversations in the chat. And like I said, it is being recorded, and you'll get the recording. You'll get everything of that. You will also get a feedback from Luma at the end, through your email that you signed up for. We'd love any feedback that you can. And that is probably the only time I'm going to tell you. I'm not trying to sell you on feedbacks, but it's important. That's what I meant. So do share true feedback if you can at the end. Okay, so who do we have on this session today? So I'm going to do a little introduction. So in the panel, we have Kevin Leonore. He is one of the top 100 CS strategists and an experienced customer success manager at Evolve AI. I was just joking with Kevin actually that his background is actually pretty amazing, because it really says everything about what Kevin does and what he's about. So, hey, you guys, please read away his background. But no, he's an excellent, customer success professional. I've known him for over a year now, working with him with CS Insider. One of the amazing thing about Kevin is that he's mentored over 24, I want to say, CS professionals. And then 20 of them which actually achieved to land their role into SaaS. So it's like he's done this, he's been doing this for so long, he's been supporting people, and I'm super excited to have him on the panel today to share his thoughts. All right, so then we have Carly Agar here, also on our call. Hi, Carly. She is a customer success career coach. She's got an abundance of knowledge and experience in helping people break into CS. You're missing out if you haven't seen Carly's post or content on LinkedIn. I mean it. So if you aren't following her, please follow her. She puts out such an amazing content every day. And every time I feel like I get a light bulb moment when she puts out her content. So yeah, if you're not following, please do. And I'm super excited to have you here because I cannot wait to pick your brain about so many things. So thank you, Carly, for being here. And then last but not least, we have, okay, Nash, I'm gonna pronounce your name. Please tell me if I pronounce it wrong, but it's Nyasha Rucker.
No, it's Nyasha, but close.
Nyasha, there we go. Okay, perfect. We're gonna go with Nash because I don't want to butcher your name, but I appreciate that. Thank you so much. She is actually someone, I'm super excited to have Nash on the call today because she is bringing an experience from someone that recently broke into customer success. She's a CSM at Glia today. Amazing company. I've heard great things about them. But she recently broke in with, I want to say, no CS background. So I cannot wait to, pick her brain about some of the practices, some of the strategies that she implemented into trying to break into the CS role. All right. Okay. Without further ado, how we're going to start this discussion is we're going to do a quick poll because we want to kind of do a little pulse check on, where people are in their CS journeys. If you're struggling with it, obviously the name of this session, the topic is rising from the struggle, breaking into CS. So we want to know about your struggle, and it could be in whatever parts. And we've got some broken down into this poll. So Christina, if you don't mind running a quick poll for us, everybody can take a couple of minutes to vote for this. That would be awesome. And I don't think I need to say this, but they are.
Everybody's so fast.
Yeah, everybody's like so excited. We've got like almost 100 people joining today. That is incredible. This is exciting. Okay. All right. Awesome. So I'm gonna give it another maybe like 10 seconds before we end it. So yeah, you probably see a pop up on your screen. Please take that poll. Looks like it's running a timer, but we can end it early. Let's give it another 30 seconds maybe. I'm seeing some great results, to be honest. We've got a employed seeking a new CS role, 29%. Unemployed seeking a CS role, 49%. Well, you guys are in luck today because we have great stuff planned. You didn't get a poll, Becca? I'm so sorry. Do you see something on your screen? I don't know if we can launch it for you specifically. Oh, that happens when you have a bunch of different monitors. No worries. Okay, all right. I think, Christina, we could probably end the poll now. Okay, awesome. So I'm sure you can kind of see the results too, but we have about 7% of people unemployed and seeking a new, any SaaS role, which doesn't have to be CS. You're just, maybe any in the SaaS tech space in the SaaS role. A great amount of like almost 50% of unemployed seeking a new CS role, which is great because that's what this session is about. There are people that's probably not happy or looking to move on and seeking a new CS role. And about 15% that are in a CS, employed in CS, but just wanting to maybe move around and then seeking another role, which is great stats. Well, thanks everyone for doing this. And well, I'm gonna get started. So the way that we're gonna do is we're gonna be discussing about 3 different factors today. It's mindset that you need to have to break into CS. We're going to talk about strategy that you need to, implement to break into CS. And we're going to talk about a whole lot of different things with it, using LinkedIn, not using LinkedIn, what are the other strategies to kind of, you can leverage to showcase that you are qualified for a role. And then we'll go into execution. So it's like, okay, we've got a mindset, got the right mindset, we've got a strategy in place. How do we execute that? And, when it comes to resumes and interviews and stuff. So that's really the plan today to go over. So I'm going to kickstart with the mindset. And first question is I have for you, Kevin, because I know that we have talked about this a whole lot, but I want to kind of understand from you, what do you think, what are some crucial like mindset shifts that someone looking to break into CS needs to have or needs to make, any realistic expectations? What are your thoughts around that?
I'm glad that you asked, because the number one thing that I teach my students is that they need to have a value-driven mindset. Because if you're not looking for how to give every stakeholder that you work with value, you will not get through to these hiring managers. You will see it early and often in your interviews. How did you work with another department to accomplish a goal? That's a common question that you're going to get in the interview segment. A good answer would show how you work together to accomplish your customer's goal, but a great answer would show how you work together to accomplish the key performance indicators of each stakeholder. If you curated a project that required sales involvement designed to elicit the need for an upsell, then that is you using customer success to help the sales department hit their numbers, which likely helps you hit your net revenue retention KPIs as well. Value-driven also means that you are able to show hiring managers that hiring you is getting more than just a CSM, but also someone who could help them plug the gaps that are currently in their processes, currently part of their team, and currently part of their documentation. Ask questions. Is their CS processes documented right now? If not, well, if you hire me in my first 30 days, I will ensure every process I learn is documented professionally. Why? Because maybe I've done it in the past. Maybe I could show a sample of a playbook I wrote in my job as a call center supervisor that I could use the same framework to write the playbook using the procedures that this company already has in place. And when I say value driven, that includes the most important stakeholder. And no, it's not the customer. The most important stakeholder is you. It's time to start valuing yourself more. When you enter the interviews, you are bringing with you experience that likely no other professional interviewing or working there has. If you know in your heart today that you could be a CSM, then you have to have that confidence and the knowledge to relate your experience to being a CSM. If you don't value yourself at that level yet, that's not a problem. Value can always be improved. So work on your gaps, learn more about the CS profession, and come back stronger. If you still need help, CS Insider, our Breaking into CS series, will help you understand your connection to the CS environment and help you value yourself more in interviews.
Yeah, that's an excellent answer, Kevin. Thank you so much. I mean, you've nailed it. I mean, that's what it really comes down to is, yeah, that was amazing. I mean, value-driven mindset. I mean, that's what it is about. It's, sometimes I always kind of even think of it kind of like, being a CS professional is not just, having those skill set that you need. Mindset is huge. You could be amazing at doing what you do, but if you don't have the right mindset to do what it needs to be done for you, your team, your customers, I mean, just because you're an individual contributor doesn't necessarily mean that you're only thinking about yourself. It's like you've got to have the mindset where you can see holistically where you are, how it's helping you, how it's helping others, because at the end of the day, that's going to make your customers successful, and that's going to make you successful. Your success really relies on those around you to be successful, and I think that mindset, like what you talked about, is having that is critical. So thank you, Kevin.
And you'll be a little bit surprised as well, just who values what you say. And I myself I'm a CSM. I'm an individual contributor, but I'm invited to speak at conferences. I'm invited to have conversations with CS leaders, and it's the fact that I bring value to every conversation that I have, whether it's somebody above me or it's somebody that is just starting out. There's a lot that I could be learning from each and every one of you today that I can take into my own practice today. So definitely value yourself. Make sure that you're thinking about how you can influence the value of every conversation that you have for every person involved.
I agree 100%. Thank you, Kevin. All right, shifting to you, Carly, a little bit. Obviously, you've been doing some great work, especially when it comes to customer success, career coaching and whatnot. So what I really want to understand from you is, what do you think what should aspiring CS professionals that are looking to break into CS understand about the hiring process. Obviously, Kevin talked about a little bit about the mindset, but you can probably help dive in a little bit about the mindset they need to have for the hiring process, and what should they understand or keep in mind about the hiring process.
Yeah, I love that question. So the thing that I always teach my clients is the hiring process from the job seeker's perspective. Your job in this role as a job seeker is to dismantle objections. So hiring managers essentially have a list of reasons why they think they should not hire you. They don't want to hire everybody, right? They want you to come in and prove them wrong. So if I'm a hiring manager and I have, a candidate who's coming in to interview, I've probably looked at their resume, their LinkedIn, and I probably have made a list of assumptions about this person that supports my case not to offer them a job. And so as the job seeker, what you should be doing is not thinking, what's the best answer to every question they could possibly ask me, but instead think about, how can I dismantle their objections and be proactive about it? So one example of that, and I hear this all the time, so I hope nobody gets offended, because if you've answered this question this way before, you're not alone. A general question like, why do you want to be a CSM? If you say, well, I love working with people, or I love helping people solve problems, unfortunately, you've not dismantled any of their objections, because a hiring manager isn't thinking, I don't think I should hire this person because they probably hate people, right? But what they might be thinking is, I probably don't want to hire this person because they've never led a client onboarding before, or they have never learned a SaaS tool before, so they might be slow at becoming an expert in our product. So a much more effective answer, if we think about the objections first, would be something like, well, I want to be a CSM because I have led employee onboardings for the last 6 years as an HR coordinator. And I relate those onboardings to onboarding customers, and I've become really good at it. And I'm excited to continue doing that. So you got to think about their potential objections, not just about having answers to questions.
Oh, wow. I got no words, Carly. Sorry, that was amazing. Honestly, dismantling that objection. I mean, it's really about, you got to understand the why, and not your why, but their why. That's what you kind of saying. It's like, what is their why for them to hire you? Kind of like, what are they looking? And I've seen this sometimes, you go on interviews and you might be so prepared, but they are so hardcore focused on certain things that they want in that role from that person, because that's the need of the hour for their organization. And you may not have it, and if you don't know those whys, it's going to be hard to tackle that, because you're not going to be able to object those whys, and think about really kind of like match their skill set, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the execution and the strategy portion. But really match your skill sets that you've had from before, whether you were in CS or not in CS, and how does that match to whatever that they're looking for. And one thing I would say is, like, one of the things that I also recommend is if you are in an interview, or even sometimes the easiest one is to talk to the recruiter, and it's okay to just like ask them, like, what are some of the, I guess, the pain points, or what are some of the things that they're trying to solve, like how are they, and also like when you're communicating with other CSMs and whatnot, understand those pain points, because that's what you want to use when you're going back to them. Sorry, I'm running ahead here. So excited. So I'm running ahead a little bit here, but thank you, Carly. That was excellent advice and answer. So, okay, I'm gonna bring it to you, Nash, now. So, you've recently broke into CS. You became a customer success manager with no background of being in CS. So what I want to know from a mindset perspective from you is, what adjustment did you have to make to some of the unique challenges that were probably presented to you? Like, what kind of a mindset did you have to go through them?
Well, for me, it was having a growth mindset. And that's really what I think put me above a lot of people who are trying to enter NCS at that time. So I'll say my journey with CS started in 2019, pre-COVID, pre-TikTok, pre-everything, because I went on TikTok then and I saw someone who looked like me. And she was like doing a carousel of all these amazing things. She was meeting with her clients. She was flying here and there, doing presentations. And I said, that's something I want to do. What does she do? And I found out she worked at Asana. And then I went to Asana and I looked up what is a customer success manager. And once I found that role and I was like, that's what I do now, just in a different industry, in a different form. And that's what I want to do. And I want to do it in the SaaS space. I want to do it in tech. And I had to figure out how I was going to do it. So it was a growth mindset, but I was building a strategy while doing it. So before I wanted to jump ship at my current employer, it was about, hey, are there any different responsibilities I can take on? Are there any duties that I can do that maybe it'll make me a better employee here, but it will set me up for that success? For like how Carly mentioned, you go into those interviews and say, well, I've already been doing this. You know, you're not just going to say, I'm good at talking to customers. Oh, no, I've been doing presentations. I have experience onboarding. I have the ability to do renewals. I've been doing it. And that's kind of even how I went into my interviews. So that's kind of the mindset change, was knowing that wherever I was, whatever situation I was in, I had to grow out of it, not just leave it behind, but I had to take the experience I had there and grow from it, and then take that experience with me. I don't want people to think that you have to forget about your past. You're like, there's going to be some magic wand being waved and you're going to be a whole new person. No, I took the experience I had and said that I've done this, and I was strategic again about my plan. I had results doing X, Y, and Z, and I needed to show my new employer or anyone I was interviewing with how those results, my past results, will drive my future with them and get their future results, what they're looking for. So again, understanding that why are they hiring a CSM? You need to find out the why, and then you can answer that question for yourself. And you'll go into every interview more confident, and you'll be able to easily talk about your experience. No matter what type of experience you had, you'll be able to talk about it and be strong in it and be believable. That was one thing, is you have experience, now you need to make someone believe it. You need, you did it. So you need to make someone believe that you did it and be curious about how you did it.
Wow, that's great. Thank you, Nash, for that. And I think you kind of hit that in the right spot, is in, having that growth mindset. It's not just about, it's having, you could have abundance of knowledge and experience from previous, like, what are you going to do about it? I think that's really like, and that's where the growth mindset really comes in place. Like, well, I have this, let me take this and transfer this into whatever skill set that I'm going to need, and have that conversation. You don't, I think it was Carly or someone that mentioned, you don't have to have right answers. Like, you don't have to have a perfect answers in all of the questions. What you need to have is, what do you think is the right answer for that? And based on your experience and expertise. And that's what you take it. That's what you take it forward, because you're going to feel a lot more confident. It really comes down to being confident. Someone had told me in the past that, getting on interviews and doing interviews are easy. It's always about articulating, your experience on those interviews that are harder. You could have abundance of experience, but if you get on a call and they ask you something, like, I don't know, because you don't know how to articulate that. That's what you need to practice, because that's what's going to help you feel confident. So thank you so much, Nash. That's a great advice from someone that recently broke into CS. If that worked for Nash, everyone, that's going to work for you. So thank you for that. All right, awesome. So that's a little bit about the mindset. We want to move into a strategy portion. We're getting a lot of great comments in the chat. Everybody's giving so much love to all our panelists. That's great. I do want to remind everyone, and JP here is going to be collecting some questions. So if you have a particular question that you want to get answered, or have like one of the panelists answer, because we're going to cover a whole lot of things, but still, if you have them, drop them here in the chat, or drop them in person, in message to JP, and then he'll collect. And then if we have, as time allows at the end, we will do an AMA at the end. Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving on, I want to switch gears a little bit and we want to talk a little bit about strategy. We've got the mindset, we know our why, we know what to do. We've got those, understanding, get the growth mindset and everything. And now I think I want to move into a strategy portion. So I guess the first question is for you, Carly, and this is actually a pretty interesting one because I myself have a lot to say about this, but I want to hear from you. Is what are some of the effective versus not so effective strategies for CS role seekers? And you can also maybe talk a little bit about leveraging LinkedIn into it, because I feel like that's a new era. Everybody should leverage that's looking to break into CS. So I want to kind of learn from you how people should do it.
Totally. Yes. I have a great analogy to share about LinkedIn. I personally have been working on my analogies and metaphors, and I feel like it's a really strong one. So I'm excited. But in terms of strategies, what you want to think about is two things. One is your visibility in the market. Point blank, you can't get hired unless a hiring manager or a recruiter knows about you. So think about your visibility in terms of what can I do to pitch myself or make myself stand out. So if we're talking about LinkedIn specifically, a not effective strategy would be applying to a job. If you're applying to a job, you are part of the majority. That's what everyone else is doing. That isn't doing anything to give you any extra visibility. If you apply to a job and you also have been networking into that company for a couple of months and you have connections there, you can go ask those connections for referrals. 9 times out of 10, people are going to say yes and refer you. Another thing you can leverage LinkedIn for is sending video introductions. I love video because not only does it make you stand out, but it's also a really easy way for you to prove that you have a lot of the traits that a hiring manager wants to see in a CSM. Someone who can communicate, who can be personable, who can take action and be self-confident. So if you're sending a video, you're automatically boosting your chances of getting an interview. The other thing in terms of strategy, which is a little bit less specific to LinkedIn, is thinking about your credibility. So how can I acquire CSM experience or just better prove that I have what it takes to be a CSM? I don't mean like go out and try to find a part-time CSM job. I don't even think they exist. But what you can do is start building a portfolio, figure out what CSMs do in their day-to-day jobs and try and practice those things. Or take what you've learned about the CSM role and go do that at your current job. Just by having a tiny bit of experience doing those things, your confidence and credibility in interviews is going to skyrocket. So those are the two things. Now I'm going to talk about my analogy when it comes to LinkedIn. Okay, I know we've all heard this, but I can't drive this home enough. Posting about the woes of the job search is not helping you, it is hurting you. And here's why. I will say I fully support having a community on LinkedIn. If you're searching for a job, it's stressful, it can kill your confidence, it's terrible, right? To some degree. So you should have that community. You should lean on that community for support. By all means, like I am not saying not to have that community. However, think about it like this. Let's say that you, I don't know, hit the lottery and you win $100,000. And you're like, great, I'm going to use this money to redo my whole house. And you go on to Angie's List and you're looking for contractors. And there are a bunch of contractors writing, I wish someone would take a chance on me and let me redo their home. Or I've been learning so much about how to be a contractor. You're not going to hand them your $100,000 to redo your house, because the story that they're telling is I'm not ready or I'm not prepared. So even though it's tempting, find other ways to leverage that community, keep that to private groups, to messages, wherever you can get that support from those people, do that. But don't do it publicly because it is going to hurt your chances at getting interviews.
This was
Absolutely
amazing.
agree with Carly.
Yeah. Go ahead,
I'll
Kevin.
also add too that I've added quite a bit of you on LinkedIn now, and one of the things that I've also noticed on your headlines is that you put on there aspiring customer success manager. Go ahead and take that off right now. Today, you're a customer success manager. As long as you're already thinking in the mindset, you are a CSM already. Don't bother telling people that you're aspiring.
That's a great one. You know, make it happen. You got to believe it first before you make the rest of the world believe it, kind of. So that's amazing. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Carly. That was pretty amazing. I mean, I actually sat down here and took a couple of notes here myself. But
I've
you
really been working
yeah.
on my analogies.
That is an amazing analogy. And when you start to think about that example that you use, and when you start to think about it that way, it's like I almost put myself in that shoes, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to tell people that I want your $100,000 or whatever. I want you to give me that $100,000 yourself, already, because I can do it. I have that ability in me. So that was amazing. Thank you, Carly. One of the things that I would say is that could be helpful is when you reach out to other people, other CSMs and I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later too, but have the mindset really plays here as well, is that, how you approach and reach out to learn about this too is also amazing. You don't want to reach out and be like, hey, I'm looking to see, referrals are great. You want to talk to a bunch of people that is from that company and you want to learn about it, but have just a genuine understanding of, I'm not trying to get anything out of this besides I just want to learn about how are you doing CS in your organizations, or how are you, doing CS in general. I think having that mindset helps, because then you're not fishing for, the obvious, I guess, but you're going for, knowledge, you're going for, I want to learn, and that's what you kind of target. So that's amazing. All right. Okay. Well, the next one is I have for you, Nash. So I think we've talked about this before, but if I remember correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually didn't leverage a whole lot of LinkedIn, which is kind of surprises me. But because of that, I wanna learn about your strategies. What was your strategy? I think you mentioned that a little bit earlier too, but maybe dive in a little bit deeper into what did you do to break into CS? What was your strategy, if you use LinkedIn or not?
So I feel like I was looking into CS before the big CS wave, before the LinkedIn wave, before, we went through the pandemic. So my mindset was a little different. So I hired actually a career coach, and even he said, you need to get on LinkedIn and leverage LinkedIn. And I think I was apprehensive and nervous, because at that time, when you think of LinkedIn, it didn't represent me. It didn't represent my community. So I just didn't feel like it was a place for me. So what I would do is I used Hunter.io. So I would find email addresses of leaders, of recruiters, of even peers, just to even have just conversations about different CS positions, or what it was like to be a CSM, just to kind of build my own knowledge base to make sure I wanted to take the leap. So, and also when CS became big and when LinkedIn became big, I still had a job. So I just felt like I felt like I was doing a disservice to people, going on and saying, oh, I have a job and I'm going to be looking for another job, when there were so many people that didn't have one. So in my mind, I just felt a little apprehensive, just putting myself out there. And I just didn't want to seem as if I was coming off a certain kind of way. So I didn't leverage it, but instead, even though it's a wonderful resource, what I would do is really I took that time to work on my resume. I took that time to learn different CS terminology and really become that person that if someone asked me a CS question, I already knew the answer. I wanted to project what and manifest. And I spent that time doing that. And that was really a part of my strategy. And it worked, because I was able to say, on this date, I'm going to get an offer. And that's what happened. I'm going to be a CS, and I'm going to be in CS, and that's what happened. So I think even though I didn't leverage LinkedIn, I kind of did it on the back end, because once I got into CS, the community really opened up to me, and I got so many my network got so large so fast. And I was just like very excited and very happy about that. But yeah, in the beginning, LinkedIn just didn't represent me and I just didn't feel comfortable using that. But going and emailing recruiters and learning about different opportunities that I can apply to, it got my foot into the door. And I didn't really have to put my application in the ATS. I could just send them my resume and that would be that. So that's kind of how I did a workaround, a LinkedIn workaround.
Yeah. And that's pretty amazing. I think I'm glad that you've mentioned that, because that's important. And, not all of us are comfortable doing what needs to be done on LinkedIn and just, reaching out to recruiters and whatnot. And I think that's why I wanted to kind of get your perspective of how you did it. And like you mentioned, through LinkedIn or not, in a way you did what others would be doing, is like, reaching out, presenting yourself. And with some of the practices that Carly presented, the referrals, video ones, like video, it's huge. I feel like it's been out there, but now is the time when a whole lot of people are talking about, it's like almost like creating, what do they say, like creating a video resume or something. You basically represent yourself or something. But that's no, that's a great advice. Thank you, Nash,
Of
for
course.
that tip. Okay, all right, I've got a one for you, Kevin, and moving on to you. I think we've discussed this a little bit, I feel like, in some of the CS Insider sessions too, and just in general. But from your perspective and from your experience working with people looking to break into SaaS and CS, and I guess, what can a CS role seeker do to leverage previous experience to prove that they're qualified? I think we've been talking about that a little bit too, but from your from your understanding, what should they do so that it resonates, that previous experience resonates into what they need to be doing, and then they can prove that they are qualified?
Well, one of the best exercises to prove that you're qualified is to start thinking like a CSM. Look back at your career through the lens of a CSM, and you'll start to identify what is a CS practice. Because us as CSMs right now, when we hear your background, we could instantly say that's a CS behavior right there. And Nash already showed that she looked through her past role through a CS lens and was able to articulate that in a language CS professionals can understand, that her role was very closely related to a CSM. And she said right then and there, I am a CSM. I worked with an aspiring CSM who was the head instructor at a ballet dance academy. And now you may be thinking, what does that have anything to do with customer success? Well, after some exercises of thinking like a CSM, she identified that she navigates the customer through the journey map and recommends additional products for exceptional champion customers that led to an increase of total contract value of 20%. What did that actually translate into her world? All it was that she noticed that ballet students were performing way above their instruction level through milestones and benchmarking, and she recommended more advanced and more expensive lessons to those students. That was exactly moving into the desired outcomes of the student, which was her customer. And that was identifying through benchmarking and through the journey map that they were better suited to become champions if they were to acquire more advanced instruction. And of course, more advanced instructions mean more money that the company is making. So yeah, she was able to accomplish the exact thing that we do in CS, where we are trying to look for those customers that are best suited to become champions and build the case for them to take on more products that's going to build up the value that they receive and make them better in their professions, and ultimately lead to an increase in net retention revenue.
I love that. I mean, and some of you probably heard a whole lot of CS terms in that, because I did too. And I think that's the key is, you are doing those things, you're working through those already. Doesn't matter what kind of experience you have, or even if you don't have an experience and you maybe have just taken some classes or done maybe the college or university or whatever that maybe. It's like I feel like CS really, like, I'm so passionate about CS. I would say it's because we're doing a whole lot of things in a day-to-day life already. I'd say that, there's a way of like the mindset that you need to have and all that. It's just about translating that skills and values into the CS terms, basically. And you gave some great advice, Kevin. And I kind of, that reminded me of something that recently someone actually recommended to me that I actually recommended to someone else. But long story short, they said, you know, when you're applying for a job, you can take like a job description, you know, and put it into like in a document. And really, like, after there's a part about, you know, to be like, to be qualified, you need to have this and that, whatever. Break it down into, if they're asking for this, how does your previous experience like, you know, translate to that? Break that down. You know, you can even take another step. Maybe you make a PDF version of it, you add it in with your cover letter to the, you know, when you're applying for jobs, or when you're, you know, interviewing, or whatever that may be. That's another level. You know, you are already giving them, this is how I can do the job that you're looking to do for this role. So it's, you know, really translating that that information. So thank you.
I'll also add like a pro tip too. Like, I saw in the poll that many of you are still currently in your current role and haven't made your way into customer success yet. And majority of the people that I mentored were in that same boat. And one of the things that I told my students is to act like you're a CSM already in your current role, and keep thinking about the ways that you exercise CS strategies and skills in your role. Start collecting that those examples and add that to your portfolio. These are things that you could bring into your interviews and show, well, this is one of the CS behaviors that I do in my current role right now, and here's what I accomplished for my current company.
That's a great advice. Thank you, Kevin. All right, okay, we're progressing well. I wanna move into, you know, we've got to cover the mindset, the strategy. I wanna move into execution. Now really talk about, you know, we've got what it takes. Now, how are we gonna put into work, you know, using doing the interviews, building on resumes, some of the things that we're talking about already, but, you know, deep dive a little bit onto that. But before that, I do want to do a little bit of a pulse check, which we've been, you know, there's this term that I feel like JP, Christina, and myself at RPS has been kind of working on. We call that live CSAT. You know, we're going to do a live customer, I guess, satisfaction, whatever. So I guess I want to see in the chat, you know, are you, there you go, love that, live CSAT. You know, are you enjoying the session? Are you getting value out of it? You know, yay, nay, just give me that. And it's okay if you say nay, I'm not gonna be offended, believe me, it's just gonna help me. Look at that, a lot of love. Awesome, awesome, great to see this. All right, looks like it's a thing, Christina and JP, live CSAT. We're going with it. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone. Okay, moving on to the execution part. So first question I have is for you, Nash. So let's talk about resumes and interviews a little bit. Maybe can you share maybe some of your like a light bulb moments? Maybe even share like an example of you know, some of the updates you've done to your resume to get in front of, you know, when you were reaching out to those I guess recruiters via emails or whatever that you did, you know, just maybe some of those light bulb moments, you'd be like, okay, fine, if I do this in my resume, if I do this, if I present myself in like this, it would be amazing for your, you know, during interviews and when you were working on resume.
So it was really, okay, in your mind, you're functioning like a CSM. So like for me, I went back to my employer and said, I want additional duties. And I chose duties that related to job descriptions in which I thought I would be a good fit for, so that I can go in those interviews and talk about them and talk about those experiences. But I think what we do is we don't talk about that missing piece of being able to translate that information in written form and putting it on your resume. That was the clear difference for me. Using the appropriate terminology and language that was relatable to the industry in which I was trying to move in, and putting it into words and putting it on my resume, so that the person who read it will be like, oh, I know what she's talking about. Oh, I understand how this relates. Oh, she's done this. She's gotten these results. This is what I'm looking for. That's who I'm looking for. And a resume is your invitation to the table. That's all that is. You get there, and that's when you start talking about all the actionable results you've had. You talk about how successful you've been, and you talk about how you're going to make them just as successful or even more. So once you get that invitation as beautiful and formatted as you want, that is when no, your resume after that doesn't matter because you have their ear and you already and you have that opportunity for them to go back and tell everyone, well, I've met someone and I think should be perfect or he'll be perfect and we need to move forward with them. So for me, on my resume, it was using that summary that's at the top to talk about my past experience and how it's going to relate to where I'm trying to go with this new organization. I went into it as I'm a CSM. I'm a customer success manager looking for an opportunity to do, and I've done this by these results, and I can do this again by doing this. So I use the top portion of my resume to really be that area where I'm talking about how great I am. Like I just want you guys to realize how amazing you are and you need to tell someone. So that's where I put it. I've done this. I've increased renewals by 50%. I'm putting it there so that even if I have to put in the ATS, renewals is a language and a term that's used throughout CS. So it's going to be picked up. So that was one way. And then also just walking and talking like a CS, like that's what I did. I spent my time learning so much about CS that, again, if anyone proposed any kind of question to me about it, I had an answer, or I knew where to direct them to, or I had a resource. So just building up my resources, building up my terminology was really a part of the execution of getting to where I am. And then also focusing on industries. I feel like don't apply to 100 different jobs. Like that is where you're losing. You need to pick 1 to 2 to 3 industries that are your main focus and apply to CS positions within those industries. So for me, I chose industries I was interested in. I was interested in finance. I have a finance degree. I was interested in cybersecurity. Those are just things that I was interested in. So I would laser focused on those 2 industries and only apply to those jobs. And I didn't have to tailor my resume to all these different positions. Those job descriptions were very similar. So it wasn't much work I had to do on the back end. So less work for you if you're going to do that, but that's the route I took. So make sure that on your resume, you update your summary and then you choose 1 to 2, 3 tops industries that you want to focus on. So you're not applying to every job that you feel like you'd be ready for, because you're not. Just focus on what you can focus on. It's too many moving parts when you think about it any other way. And my last recommendation is I wrote my own resume and I'm proud of it because I feel like it's your experience, it's your lived experience, and you have the emotional connection to that work experience that only you can write about it. Only you can really know that you leveraged this product to bring in this result. Only you would know that. Only you know that you built a template or you built a workbook. Those small things matter. And those also get the conversation going when you do get into those interviews.
Wow. Wow. Nash, you were on fire. That was amazing. I think a couple people even quoted a couple of things that you mentioned. Man, that's going on LinkedIn for sure. But hey, I think one of the big one was, I think you mentioned, is that, I think someone put down here too, but you're amazing and you need to tell someone about it. I think that was huge for me. And I think even the last part that you've added about, just you need to be writing your resume. Like, yes, there's builders and things that will help you with some verbiage and stuff. But if you're thinking of be like, hey, I gotta see what's working in terms of resume, and then to see if I can kind of copy and doing whatever that may be, it may seem easy and it may seem like, I got a best chance to it. But like you said, you have that emotional connection with what you're talking about what you did, and you can describe it. And believe me, I've seen it happening, is that, people just following whatever and creating their resume versus people actually writing and taking the time to write it and going through and really cutting down that, you're not applying to a bunch of different places. You're just applying to where you want to go and what matters to you. And I think that's going to help you a lot to be personable to that job, to that company, to that role, rather than just, applying and because you're just trying to break in and get your foot in. So that's a great advice. Thank you, Nash, for that. I'm gonna move it on. I think in the continue on that conversation, but moving on to you, Kevin, is I want to know, like, from your perspective, and I know that you've had some great advice around this. So maybe tell me about some of the must-haves of like a CS role seekers should have to or need to have to put on their resume. Like, what are some of the must-haves?
Well, definitely one of the things that I want people to focus on with their resume is to build it as a CS resume. When it comes to a lot of the resumes that I've been reading, there's still a lot of things from their past role, and that can come back to bite you because I experienced this personally myself. Um, Before going into customer success, I had a sales background, I had a hospitality background. So while I did change a lot of the focus to be more on CS, there were some things that I still left behind that were sales driven. And I did have questions on my interviews of why do you want to be a CSM? It seems like you're more geared best to be an AE or an SDR. So I had to battle those objections very often because my resume wasn't fully tailored to becoming a CSM. It still had bits and pieces of who I was before. And Matt was saying in the comments there that what does it mean when you say act like a CSM? So when I've made the decision to change my resume and I focused all of my roles into a CS lens, the most recent one before I became a CSM I was a front desk supervisor. Now, front desk supervisor for a 4-star hotel in Las Vegas, what does that have to do with customer success? Well, I talked about how important it was to navigate a VIP customer through the customer journey map. I had a set of VIPs that I was responsible for, that I knew when they were coming, I knew what they liked, I knew what their buying habits was. I had everything at my fingertips when it comes to everything that they've ever purchased, what they've gambled, and what are the things that even the people in their party likes. So I always hit them up like maybe a month or two after they leave and say, I'm glad that you enjoyed that hot stone massage. We actually have a new massage that is just for this season called our hot and cold experience. It's designed to use the heat to remove all the toxins that you have in your body, but then the coldness acts kind of like as a vacuum to suck that toxins right directly out of your pores. And it's a great experience that I think you'd love, especially since you loved the hot stone massage. Can I get that booked for you and let me know when you're coming back so that we could get that scheduled for you? That ended up increasing the average spend for all of my VIP customers by 20% because I was offering these offerings that were a premium price, and I was doing it to the desired outcomes of my customers and getting them to come more often and getting them to spend even more on premium items. That was me navigating the customer through the customer journey map and creating cyclical revenue. This is not ARR like we have in SaaS, but I still am treating it as if there's a renewal. The renewal was
Yep.
them coming back to the hotel. So
Yeah.
treating yourself like a CSM is understanding how you influence the customer. And I also have seen us hire people that were not even technically minded, but or have not worked in the technical environment. They were not the ones working with the customer. They were the actual customer themselves. Over at Zoom, we hired somebody that was the main stakeholder for one of our key companies. And it's because he understood the product very well and he understood what it meant to him going through the customer journey map. And he was able to articulate that to become not just an individual contributor, he became one of our managers of CS from the very beginning. So it's all about understanding and conducting yourself as a CSM, but also you as a customer understanding how those CSMs have affected your journey and being able to articulate that. That's valuable as well. Another thing I'll also impart with you guys, it is very important for you to list out that you are capable of learning multiple tech softwares at once. And it's likely that you're going to have anywhere between 12 to even like 25 different tools in your tool belt. Don't let that intimidate you. Instead, remember that every time that you are in your role today and you opened up a computer or you opened up an iPad, every program or app that you open, that is a software that you learned, and you have likely today learned hundreds already.
That's huge. That last one was amazing. Like, that was, thank you, Kevin. You're so right. I mean, even just in the phone, like how many apps do we have? I probably have hundreds, and I know a whole lot about it, and there are some complicated ones, and it takes, when you put your heart and mind to it, you can learn it. I always go back to hard skills are not hard to learn, to be honest. You can have a very complicated product and still you can learn it. But it's the soft skills that's what's going to kind of get you at the end. So that's what you need to kind of transfer and transition. Great analogy, Kevin. I think there was a couple people even in the chat that mentioned something about they come from a hospitality background. I myself also come from a hospitality background. I've worked in hotel business for a little bit too, and you're right. That's what I say. I've been doing CS for like over 15 years now, if I think about that, and I just didn't even know that I've been doing it. So that was excellent advice. Thank you, Kevin. All right, last but not least question, and I'm going to turn it on to you, Carly, is let's talk about interviews specifically. I want you to tell me, based on experience, and you've been adding so much content about this, so give your kind of what are the best practices and all that good stuff about how a candidate can best prepare for an interview. And I want you to kind of maybe mention to-dos and some that you shouldn't be doing, kind of,
Yeah, you got it. So what I would recommend is not ignoring the big 3 why questions. So these are the questions where we tend to like let our guard down a little bit and feel really comfortable. Questions like, why are you leaving your current role? Why do you want to be a CSM? And why should we hire you? As someone who does not have direct CS experience, you need to use these questions as an opportunity to talk about transferable skills. So if someone asks me, hey, Carly, why do you want to be a CSM? And I don't have CSM experience. If I just say, well, I'm looking for a new challenge and somewhere I can see myself for the long term. That's great, Carly. But you haven't told me anything about why you're qualified to be a CSM or why we should hire you. So the way that you could answer it is, well, I want to be in a position where I'll be challenged, but also one where I know I'll excel. And I know that I'll excel in this role because a lot of being a CSM is change management. And even though I don't have CSM on my resume, I've spent the last 8 years of my career doing change management. So the reason I want to be a CSM is I know that I will be challenged. I'll be pushed out of my comfort zone, but I also am so confident that I'll excel because I have this amazing transferable skill. And that's how you should approach all 3 of those questions. You should try to factor in some sort of reason why you're qualified whenever you're answering a why question. And then the other thing I'll say, I love interviews, so I could talk about this all day. I'm going to try to keep it short. My other favorite recommendation for prepping for an interview is use the job description as your guide. And that might seem really obvious. So I'll go a step further in saying, if you read a bullet point that you don't understand, so for a lot of CSM's jobs, it says, monitor account health metrics and create action plans to remediate risk. If you look at that and you're thinking, what the heck is an account health metric? Stop, go figure out what that is. Go do some Google searches, go ask CSMs in your network what that means. And then what you can do is think about, okay, now that I understand what account health metrics are, even though I don't use those in my job, I do use data to make sure that my projects are tracking against deadlines. So I can kind of draw that parallel. So that's what I'll talk about if that comes up in the interview. And now that I know what an account health metric is, I can also be prepared to speak to my perspective in an interview. So I could talk about the data that I use to keep my projects on track. And I could also add in, and as a CSM, the account health metrics that I would want to make sure I had access to are X, Y, and Z. And that shows a lot of things. It shows that you've gone out of your way to learn about the role, which, by the way, goes back to proving a transferable skill of being a creative problem solver and an action taker. So the 3 why questions, make sure you are using them as an opportunity to reinforce why you're qualified, and use the job description as your guide.
That's amazing. Thank you, Carly. I hope that all of you were taking some notes. I mean, this is recorded, but that was a lot of great tips there, and that kind of really, I feel like it really comes down to those whys and being able to transfer those things. And there was a key point that you mentioned at the beginning of when you were saying about this is change management. A whole lot of customer success is change management, and like it or not, we all are doing change management in our daily life every single day, and we just don't even know. So Kevin, I'd love to get your take on it. Thank you.
When Carly when Carly had mentioned the why should we hire you, there is a hidden question or a hidden background behind that question that a lot of people that are applying don't really realize, and you won't realize it until you actually start onboarding. Part of the reason why it's so hard for people to come in brand new to CS right now is that many companies are not training you to be a CSM when you join the company. Your training that you get within onboarding is usually either product training first and foremost, and then maybe they'll stick you in the sales training just so that way you could understand what are the reasons around why customers come to your company. But they won't train you to be a CSM. What they will do instead is they'll have you shadow a CSM, and they'll stick you in front of a knowledge base, and pray that they even have enough documentation on the particular exercises or calls to action that you need to do on a daily basis. If that's not there, then how are they going to train you if you don't already know how to do the role of a CSM? So really having that foundation of understanding what a CSM does is really important. And then also being able to articulate in your interview how you would handle your first 90 days with them. That if you ask them the question, do you have those things documented? Well, then great, I'll document it for you. Or if they don't currently have a process, like great, I'll work together with the person that I am going to be shadowing, and we'll brainstorm on a way for us to create a streamlined process. That's something that you have as an advantage for you being new, is that you're going to ask a lot more questions, and you're going to create a process that is fitting of their organization versus somebody that is been in the industry for 10 years and is just going to do it their way instead of a way that's going to fit the entire team. Find those ways that you can really illustrate your value as an outsider, as a newcomer. There is value to being brand new to the industry. Leverage that.
That's amazing. That you just kind of made almost like a positive side of this whole situation, like how to look at it in positively and put it out there. You're new, and make that as your advantage. Like that's advantage for you because you're new. There's so much that you can learn and do that, like you said, someone with a 10-year of experience can't probably do that or can't change, because believe me or not, change is hard. Changing is very hard. And when you're coming new in a role, it becomes a little bit easy because then you move forward with it. Yes, Kevin, sorry.
And I'll add one last thing too. If you're thinking that this is lip service too, during my first interview with RingCentral, I only had 6 months of experience as a CSM, going from a Series C company to a publicly traded company that was worth 16 billion at the time. That doesn't happen that often that that person gets selected. And it turned out because one of the people that I was up against was a follower of mine. She told me that she was the last person for that role, and she had 8 years of experience. It
Wow.
can be done. You can beat the experienced person, and it's all about how you put together your value package over that person.
I agree. I agree. You can do it. You just got to believe it, and you have to have a plan. You know, you work your strategy and all that towards it. That's a great example. Thank you, Kevin. All right, you guys. Well, this is exciting. I can't even. This is we're having so many great questions. We're popping up with many great questions too. And I know that we're wrapping up at the end of the hour here, or hour and a half, I guess, by this time. But so I do want to ask. You know, I think JP's been collecting a couple questions. Some of them are probably answered to you already. We will be saving the chat too, so we can review it later on and make sure that things are answered. But there's a few things I'm going to do here. I am going to ask one of the questions, which I feel like a few people have already asked, which is, and you know, one of you, maybe Carly, Kevin, Nash, you could probably come off mute and or raise your hand and answer this. But what would you say? What are some of the tools you think could be useful for someone who is aspiring for CSMs?
Tools
Are you
in,
muted?
so like
Sorry.
tools in terms of like, well, here, we'll start with one. One of the things that I highly recommend is getting very proficient in G Suite, since that is something that you don't have to pay into like you would with Microsoft 365. So being very proficient in creating documents, you can also build a portfolio directly in G Sheet using Google Sites, and show all the things that you've created for your current organization that is CS related. You can show the different reports that you've created through Google Sheets. So being very proficient in that and showing how you've leveraged that tool to being more CS-like is something that you can demonstrate very easily. And you can even show it during your interview or even post-interview by sending it in your thank you email.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you, Kevin. Some of you may have probably seen, you know, you've probably asked some of the questions around like what are the some resources like books and other things, and maybe like a certificate that you can do. We kind of deliberately on purpose didn't, you know, cover those questions because those you're probably hearing about them a whole lot in community and other places too. Plus, we have actually put together a guide, like a one pager for you guys that we'll send you with the recording, and it's got all the resources of the books that you can read, you know, if other webinars you can attend, you can, you know, certificate that you should be doing, the events and all that good stuff. We have it all for you with linked everything on it. So we'll send that over to you. So you'll get answers of all those things. And we recommend, you know, I'm probably speaking for the panel, but we recommend you to you know, dive deeper into taking those certificates and learning about it from, you know, Udemy, from Success Coaching, from Practical CSMs, from YouTube, or even just getting on a call with someone and ask them about CS questions, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow, and that's how you're going to be able to feel confident. So, all right. I'm going to wrap this up a little bit here, but, you know, because we love, you know, we invented a live CSAT, we're actually going to do a poll at the end. That is a live CSAT. So Christina, if you don't mind just putting that on, and if everybody can just take a 30 seconds to just like give us some, I guess, you know, and it's okay if you say it's dissatisfied, it is anonymous. So you're
Am I
totally
allowed to
fine.
vote?
Yes, you are, please.
Okay.
Somebody would have very dissatisfied. I am curious. Very curious who that person is, how we can help them. All right, well, here, let me see if I can link the PDF here. If not, you will get the recording. And here, let me try it here real quick while you add this. Move away. Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll just give it a one last minute. Okay, all right. Well, let me know if you guys can access that PDF, but that should have all of the session, the resources. Okay, we should be able to wrap this up. Thank you for the public CSAT. We're coming up with terms back and forth here, you guys. This is great. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you so much, panelists, Carly, Kevin, and Nash. This was a huge success, I would say. Well, you know, just for everyone that's here, we have it recorded. You will get that recording afterwards. You're also going to get an email from Luma to just add, you know, do another CSAT, I guess. But you know, you can add your notes in it. If you have some questions too, please add them questions. We'll try to write up answers and give you right back through that. And we're also going to be doing an article on this too, with the recordings, with the links, and with all of it. So the goal is that you can probably take at least a couple things from this session and start to implement in your day-to-day and talk about it. Talk about it on CS Insider, about CS Insider, talk about it everywhere else. You know, Carly does, I just want to kind of shout out here. She does her career coaching here too. Kevin does, it supports people through that too. Nash is doing great stuff too. So reach out to these people, connect with them. You know, we are all welcome with everything. And yes, I can't forget the picture. So I don't know how to best do this, but I'm going to remove you guys from the pin real quick. And we are going to, whoever I can get in the picture, I'm going to trying to do a picture here. So everybody who can come off, you know, on a video, please do, and give me a huge smile, and I'm about to take a picture. Ready? Ready? I guess we could do rock, paper, scissors. No, okay, no, we don't. All right. Thanks everyone, and cheese. Thank you so much, and hope you enjoy the rest of the day, rest of the week, and I'll see you guys somewhere else. I will add a link of the CS Mixer as well in the chat. I think I have it somewhere. That's actually on the PDF. So do take a look at that, and then you can join that as well. Thanks everyone. Have a good one.
Thanks, Ashna.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.